Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity to Mr. Duncan. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a fat burning athlete and a teacher. Can you please, Mr. Duncan, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. Duncan?
I am happy to tell you about my story. In fact, my book is a little bit about that story. Um, as I am a retired teacher, as of yesterday, it was my last day in education and I retired. It was quite an emotional day, saying bye to the students, saying bye to the teachers. But this has been part of my journey. And as far as an author goes, my book was published only a week ago. So it's been an exciting week. I've been I've been trying to promote my book quite a bit over the last few weeks and discuss the journey. And that's what I'll tell you a little bit now. Are you happy if I tell you how I came about to write the book? Okay. And you mentioned about being an athlete. I wasn't an athlete going back several years ago. I was actually overweight, a single parent with three children, and teaching, which was a stressful job. So the weight kept gaining. I kept eating more, and what happened was I was assaulted quite badly. It was quite a vicious assault. I was hospitalized. I thought I was okay. I think you start to comfort eat. And I was diagnosed within about a year of post traumatic stress disorder, which meant I was changing things in my life. I was trying to avoiding crowded places. I was avoiding anywhere there would be any conflict. And it was suggested I took some therapy, which was quite a simple immersion therapy, which is immerse yourself in what you're fearing of, what's scaring you. And I had a little program, a little homework. It was to go into the supermarket, to go into noisy places, and then I had to record how I felt and report back to the therapist. And then after about several weeks, she said to me, "Have you thought about exercise?" And and I said, "Would that help?" She said, "Yes, running can be really good for the mind." I said, "Well, I don't feel much of a runner, but I'll try." Told my daughter, and I bought a pair of trainers and I set off running. I enjoyed the running. I started to lose a little bit of weight, but at the time, I was a vegetarian. I'd been eating the vegetarian way for about 5 years. And I now know I wasn't fueling correctly. I felt as though I was eating a healthy way. And I certainly know now that the vegetarian way may work well for many others and the vegan way of eating, but it didn't work for me at the time. As I got a little bit better running, I wanted to go further. Runners want to run marathons, but I didn't like the idea of every 20 to 30 minutes taking an energy gel, taking sugar. It affected their digestive system. I knew running colleagues that were rushing to the toilet during these marathons, and you've all seen the terrible, shocking videos that happen. And I thought there must be a different way. And that's when I started to research ancestral eating and how our ancestors will have done it. And there is many very nice, very well written books researching this. And I came across that a lot of them would run animals to exhaustion. This is how the early hunters gatherers. And man could actually outrun these animals. They may have to might have to tandem compete and race against them, but they were often doing this fasted, perhaps on a 24 or 2 day fast. So to run that distance, to outrun the animals with no food, meant there was a different energy system. And this is where my research started. I started to eat the ketogenic way, which for anybody listening, not too sure about the keto, is just keeping your carbohydrates below 50 grams. Fairly simple, but mostly eating anything else you want. And that worked well for me for about 2 years. I started to eat meat at this point, and 2 years in, I was getting quicker, faster, leaner. I felt better. My mind was better. Then I thought, why not go full carnivore? What will happen if I go down to zero carbohydrates? Now, I started to read some research work on it, which there wasn't a lot out there to find, and see what would happen. And this is what I did. And this was going back about 6 years ago. And when I put it to a test, I did a 24-hour fast. I was total fat burner on zero carbohydrates. And I set off and ran 28 miles. Felt good, didn't take a drink, and thought, well, I could start to do ultra marathons. What started to happen then, I got into the triathlon world. I became an international athlete and got recognised by the Great Britain team to compete in the World Championships. Because I may have not been the quickest, but I didn't need to stop to fuel. I seem to have an endless energy system. All of us, it doesn't matter how lean we are, can carry 20,000 calories of energy. And this has taken me to this day. Now, and sorry, it sounds like a long story, but I'm coming to a close on this now. The book has always been at the back of my mind during these several years. I think we all say to ourselves, maybe we have a book in us. And when I start to tell people my story, they say, you should write a book. And then people start to ask me what they should do to get healthy or to eat healthy, or where should they start. When I tell them, they look at me as though I'm some strange creature. Suddenly to say to somebody, you need to stop eating those vegetables or that fruit or that bread or everything that they think or perceive as being healthy and eat my way, they do look at me as though I'm slightly crazy and start to forget of what I've achieved. So about a year ago, when I thought about this idea of the book, it was, what happens if I start to tell the story through the eyes of a mythical creature? And this is where the vampire idea comes from. It's not about a vampire. It's, if a mythical creature delivers a message, are people more likely to believe it? And strangely, the answer so far is yes. And I think it's because you're telling it through the eyes of a third party. And as the book evolves towards the end, it becomes apparent that I am the so-called vampire, but it's not the vampire as we perceive a vampire as a blood drinker. It's a carnivore way of living, and that's what's taken me up to this week and getting the opportunity to meet you and answer any questions that you may have.
And I am so glad to also meet you today to discuss regarding these things that are very, very important in our time today. And I also want to congratulate you on your retirement. You know, as a person who teach a lot of students, it is so beautiful. And it will definitely be something that will definitely inspire. And also, those students honestly will definitely miss you in a very, very tremendously huge way because you've done a lot of impact to them. So it is a very, very big honor. And also, I'm so glad from the times you said exercise was what you were doing to the time you go to a point whereby you have to check on other ways you could get to work on yourself, which is the ancestral ways of the carnival and other ways that one can do to improve oneself. And the beauty of it is during our ancestral time, even in my own time, you know, people tend to live more longer due to their food, due to their diet, due to what they eat. But now it is different. We are having a situation whereby more people are more obese, more people are more having this kind of energy and sickness. A lot of diseases are going on today. So our ancestors have done a lot of great things when it comes to our diet, how we should live, and how we can tend to live more longer in the life we find ourselves. And that is why what we want to discuss today is so beautiful. But firstly, I would also like to dive again on your book, Blood and Bone. Can you please just discuss more on that book? And do you also plan, Mr. Duncan, to write more books in the coming future, Mr. Duncan?
I, whilst teaching over the years, I've specialized in students with ADHD and autism, and this has become, as I say, a specialty of mine. I do touch on this in a chapter in the book. It's quite a difficult topic to address. Improve this through the way of eating. So I think an extension would be taking a book down that route, and possibly autoimmune disease. But it's from the year of research that this has become apparent, and I think this is at the back of my mind. It's just so yes. I mean, I've been a mathematics teacher, which may sound to any of your listeners a little strange to go into an author in a book as a maths teacher. But what I will say for that is when I was at university, I still had to write at university level about my teaching degree, about my mathematics degree. So the language had to be used at that level. But I became a specialist on data. I can see data, like a scene from the Matrix film, like the numbers that Neo sees falling. So when our politicians and the leaders of countries talk about particular data or the food manufacturers or big pharmaceutical, I almost see through it. So really, my math specialism has helped me to analyze this data. So that's why I may take it to another book in looking at the big data, the big pharmaceutical companies, the big farming companies. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree with you, Mr. Duncan. And I also like to dive to the way dietary guidelines has also failed us in one way or the other. How do you think mainstream dietary guidelines has failed us? And what do you think are the myths that you are most eager to break apart in our time today, Mr. Duncan?
Yes. Now, the myths is something I address in the first chapter. I go through 20 myths, but the biggest one you asked there is probably back in the 1970s. This is in the United Kingdom and in America and other countries, they followed suit, was that fat, the consumption of saturated fat was demonized. And this is probably the greatest myth that we've been told. And it came from a scientist called Ansel Keys. And he had a hypothesis. I don't want to use the word hypothesis because that would imply he was a scientist. He had this theory that fat was correlated to heart disease. So he set off on a study and he made sure that his results for the 7 country study related to his theory. But actually, it was 22 countries. He cherry picked the countries that fit his narrative. And he excluded, it's back to my love for data. And it hurts me that you cannot exclude the data that you don't like the sound of it because it doesn't fit with your story. This demonization of fat for these 7 countries that they use this data on was biased, and it's caused so many problems since, so many deaths we can't even talk about. And it's not just the consumption of fat that was demonized, then it's a cholesterol that's related to that, and which I discuss at length, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity this afternoon of discussing that. So consumption of fat definitely is the biggest myth that we've been told. And then that fat, when it's been taken out of the food, has been replaced with sugar. And the sugar has led to this obesity and other inflammation and autoimmune problems. So it's each one of these is connected to the next and to the next. So I think that
Yeah.
answers your question, does it?
Yeah, definitely answer those biggest myths, which you said fat, and also as you said, the fat when it's been extracted, sugar is also something that will definitely affect us in one way or the other. Majority of the food that we eat now is added with fat. We are being told that fat has one or two benefit, but it's also one of the myths that could definitely affect us in one way or the other, and also improve us to make things also more better. And also sugar is something that is very, very important. Sugar is something that the tongue loves sugar, and it's something that if it's too much, it is unhealthy, and we have to definitely be more aware with stuff like that. And also, I would like to guide to the point of how you think nutrition with instinct and strength connects with each other. So you also connect nutrition with instinct and strength, Mr. Duncan. How do you think ancestral food supports not just physical but physiological fortitude, Mr. Duncan?
That's a really good question. Yes, I mean, I think to your listeners, it's apparent how the meat and the protein will help with physical strength, but the psychological definitely, because I touched on it before when I said about that the fat was removed, and something that is so important is cholesterol. And that, I mean, again, that has been demonized. And in fact, to the point that they say bad cholesterol, well, I'll actually describe it all as a superhero. So, what I'm trying to touch on here is our brains are 70% fat, the 70% cholesterol. If you start to remove this from your dietary consumption, and please, anybody listening might say, oh, it doesn't all come from diet. No, your body can produce cholesterol. It will do as life-saving. It's there. This is why statins will suppress that. So our brains need that cholesterol. They are made of that. So in regards to psychological, if you're not getting that and you're replacing it with, say, let's say glucose, you're hitting those pleasure receptors in the brain as a reward receptor for the high glucose. It's, you can see when people walk into supermarkets and they've got the bread by the entrance and that beautiful smell of bread, and you're thinking, yes, I want to buy the bread, or they're craving a sugary drink because they've said, oh, I'm lacking of energy. You often hear say they've got low blood sugar levels. Well, they probably have. What it is they're trying to get those pleasure receptors, those receptors that are similar to that of somebody being a drug addict. They need the sugar, they need that fix. Now, if you're always in that up and down, you are going to be all over the place with your mind, your feelings. You hear the expression they're hungry, they're angry. I see it with the students that they'll have the sugary breakfast and then start getting angry. So their mindset is not calm. It's not in a low level. Now, the example of this is my brain will operate on ketones. If you're in a fasted state, your body produces something called ketones. Brains love to function on ketones. This is a beautiful way of fueling them, and you feel so level, and your clarity is superb, and you can almost take a different perception of time. So in the sporting world, for instance, I can slow things down almost. It's a beautiful place to be. Now, why that happens is from the days our ancestors may have been forced to fast because they did not have that food. They didn't have storage of food. It wasn't readily available. Your body needed to go into preservation. You may not have eaten for 2 days, but you need to go and hunt, and you need to kill. You need to bring something back to cook for your family, for your tribe, for whoever. Where this beautiful mindset comes from, the psychological level thinking. And it is a beautiful place to be. And you can operate that way indefinitely. There's no studies that, I mean, there's plenty of studies to say it's fine. There's nothing to argue that point. I believe that answers your question.
Definitely answers it. There is no point. And also, I am so much glad that you said, the body also generates its own nutrients when the time comes. And also, as you said, our body works like a ketone. There are some things we just see, as you said, like seeing a bread or seeing something, and we just get attracted to it. The brain works that way. That is how our body works. But we as a person have to know what ketones, what we know that benefits us and help us. And most of the time, what really help us or help our health might not even be what is really sainting or the sugar that we are seeing around us. We just have to learn one or two things to know what we really want, and also how those things will definitely help our health so that we live more longer and more better in the life we find ourselves. And also, I would like to ask how you think someone can use this ancestral nutrition principle and applying it to their modern kitchen. We are not more in the olden days during the ancestral time while we have a modern kitchen. So, how do you think someone can also begin to apply this ancestral nutrition principles into their modern kitchen, Mr. Duncan?
I like that question. I do like that question. Yes, because we can't just go out hunting. I would answer that by saying, I will look at how what you can bring into the kitchen is maybe what you could start by taking out of the kitchen. Because there are things that we all have in the pantry, on the shelves, and the way we eat, that it would be better to remove it before we start to introduce the ancestral way of eating. So what I mean by that is seed oils, vegetable oils, any of these oils which are ultra processed oils. They come from seeds, they're not natural, they're actually more lubricants than they are a food source. If you can remove them, that will make a massive difference. That's getting you back to the ancestral eating way without actually introducing anything. And what would you replace that with is natural butter, ghee, let's say some all the animal fats, the lards would call them, and the dripping. Actually cooking with those, again, which were demonized back in the 1970s. It adds flavor to the food too, but it's a beautiful way of cooking. So getting rid of the ultra process, going back to the natural, and introduce salt, lots of salt. Now, again, your viewers might be listening and go, what? Salt causes high blood pressure. Do your research. I'm talking about natural salts. Get rid of the table salts and manufactured salts. These are, again, processed. They're not natural. Our ancestors will have used sea salts, rock salts, salt from the ground. It was a natural way of eating. And I think that's what I'd look at to start with. I mean, there's so many other, like the wheats as well, the modern wheats. I would remove those from the diet too, and sugar. I mean, we've addressed sugar, and I often call it white poison, but it really needs to be removed.
Oh, that is very, very beautiful, to be honest with you, Mr. Duncan, because the food that we eat, the ultra-processed food, are the one we need to take out to bring out the natural ones. But the whole question will always come in, those natural ones are very difficult to find. So we have to try our best to see how we could get those natural food so that we can have this natural body, because we have to have a body that we are more healthy and we are more healthy and okay, also avoid a lot of diseases that are happening around us. So auto processed food are something we need to avoid, and also try our best to add those natural ones that comes directly from the nature. And also, how do you also want to try to advise someone who are also been trapped in the cycles of dietary or food anxiety to make this shift gently but powerfully, Mr. and Duncan?
Yes, you're talking about a mindset shift here. Is that what you were saying about? Yeah. The I think the first thing to do is, please don't be annoyed with yourself. Please don't be angry that we've been lied to and we've started to eat this way. Um, that will not achieve anything. My poor mother, she's horrified sometimes that she thinks how she fed myself and my brother through the 1970s and 80s because she was listening to the narrative, to following the adverts on the television about heart healthy grains and margarines and avoid butter. So I said to her, that's happened. That's not your fault. Please don't try to put the blame on anybody or the blame on yourselves. What we can do from this day forward is look at changing, look at eating a healthier way, removing those items that I've discussed, and starting to introduce foods. Look at, if it's got a barcode, try to avoid it or question it or look at the ingredients. Eat naturally. I think that's the shift I would advise to start with, is just please don't blame yourselves. Please don't get annoyed. Don't look at the past. Let's look at where you're going to go in the future. Make that change.
Yes, the change will definitely come. We definitely need to try our best to get the natural things in to definitely make ourselves more better so that we could become more better in every single thing we're also doing when it comes to the diet. And also we have to try our best to get this nutrition more reliably, because most of the food we have today, Mr. Duncan, are more processed food. So it is
Yes.
definitely more difficult to find the natural ones, and I think one of the best way to do that is probably one have a backyard. We could definitely try our best to get those planting of those natural things, to have those natural things from the compound, and also other areas that we definitely know that we can get this thing to also have ourselves more healthy. But we should not blame ourselves with anything that comes around us. We should just see how it goes, and we definitely know how we can definitely scale things up to make things more better. We hope for the betterment in most for the best in the coming future, honestly speaking. And that was why I would like to dive to your book again, Blood and Bone. What do you
Yes.
think is one the warrior message from your book? And the one truth you hope listeners never forget, Mr. Duncan.
Wow. One message from my book. You realize you're asking a teacher, a school teacher, a retired school teacher, I'm proud to say, to to tell you one message when teachers love to talk about themselves and they love to talk about the subject. So to say one message, especially when I've written a whole book about messages. Um, okay, I think I can narrow that down to one. When we talk about cattle and we look at the cattle in the field, and we the yeah, don't be the cattle. Don't be that cattle that eats from the feedlot. Change it. Change that mindset. Step outside. Don't be the sheep that follows the herd. Be the person that eats that sheep or eats that cattle. Be the predator. And the way we really should live our lives and get that message out to others. I think that's the basis of my book, is really about, as you say, ancestral eating and not following what we're told to do, but researching yourself. There's plenty of research out there, read plenty. So it's not just about consuming that food or removing that particular bad food from your way of eating. It's researching, and they could start by researching it in my book. I think that's the message I would say.
Our mindset is very important. Every single thing we do on earth starts from our mindset. And that is why we need to try our best to work on our mindset and shift from one way or the other. And the best way to do that is to get the research and getting the research in the right place. We have to try our best to get the research, to know the truth, to know the false, to know what is right and to know what is wrong when it comes to diet, when it comes to nutrition, because there are sometimes it is something that we are eating that are causing the sickness or some issues we are having in our health, and we do not know about it. We go back to the hospital first month, go back again and again and again, not knowing that it is what we are eating. So we have to try our best to get those research. When we get those research, then the mindset shift starts to come in. When we start to have that mindset shift, then we'll try to look for how we can scale things up and see how we can plan and have a very natural diet that is good for us, that will help us groom, and that will help us do things. And also, as you said, we are in the modern world. We can't be going around the bush and saying, I want to go
Yes.
hot something. No, we have to try our best to remove those processed one. Try our best. It is not easy. Every single area we go to are more of processed. Every single stores we go to are more of processed food. But we need to try. It is for every single one of us good. We need to try to do that so we can live more healthier and more happier. Let us just remember how our forefathers lived. They lived so beautifully. They lived more longer. We don't see that now. We see a lot of people who live, who are even more stronger than anything, and they lived very, very happy and fair. And that is what we want for every single one of us. We want to try our best to be happy, to live more healthy, and to live a life that we are more happy and proud of. And that is why I thank you for your lovely book and also what you've been doing, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
And there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mr. Duncan. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of things, there are beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mr. Duncan, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. Duncan?
That's a good question. It's almost like if I had a magic wand that I could wave and create that beautiful, idyllic world that we perceive them to have. It would be have the time to spend with friends, family, loved ones, to sit there around that campfire and have the time to discuss and tell stories and learn and teach our children and learn from our grandparents and forefathers. That's what I'd like to introduce.
Those times
Yes.
are so lovely. I have to tell Mr. Duncan, so lovely. Those times are just so beautiful. Imagine we just having the time to sit down together, speak about about a lot of things, gist, laugh, show that kind of embracement, see a lot of possibilities. It is beautiful. It is natural. It is even healing itself. It is beautiful.
Yes.
During that time, it exists during that time, and it is so beautiful. That is why there was more love, there was more kindness. People understood each other. People understood each other no matter the background because they do know how things are, because they see it and they have this communication, they have this dialogue within one another. And that's what makes during our ancestral time so much beautiful. We hope it definitely comes back. We definitely hope that nature comes to help us to live this life of kindness. The only way we can be kind and show love with one another is to have this kind of coming together. If we come together,
Yes.
show this kind of family, show this kind of personality, when we open up with one another, we definitely see the beauty. And that is what we definitely need so that we can all live and be more happier in the life we find ourselves. We hope that definitely come back. I believe it will come back because we definitely hope it's something we need in our time. I also want to use this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Duncan, on speaking on this lovely topic on the areas of our food. Natural food is very important. We definitely know that there are a lot of processed food outside, but we need something natural because our body itself is natural. When they give birth to us, it was natural. They didn't say you have to use this thing before you can give birth. They said it comes natural, and we need something natural so that we can live more healthy and more happier. And I also want to thank you for every single thing you've been doing in society and also with your what you've been doing. Thank you so much, Mr. Duncan.
And thank you very much to you too.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Duncan. Bye bye.
Goodbye.